The corridors of St. Mary's Hospital in Louisville, Kentucky, were unusually quiet that December morning in 1997. Snow fell gently outside, blanketing the city in a pristine white coat that muffled the usual urban noise. Inside, 27-year-old Amelia Bennett hurried through her rounds, clipboard clutched tightly against her chest. 3 years into her nursing career, Amelia had developed a reputation for efficiency, but also for a certain coldness that kept her colleagues at a distance. "Nurse Bennett," Dr. Williams called out, his voice echoing slightly in the empty hallway. "We have a VIP patient coming in for his regular checkup today. I need you to handle the preliminary assessment." Amelia nodded curtly, not bothering to ask who the patient was. In her mind, all patients were the same, bodies that needed fixing, nothing more. She had built walls around her heart long ago, after watching her father waste away from illness when she was just 15. Emotional distance was her protection, her armor against the pain that came with caring too much. If this story has already made you feel something, no matter how small, don't leave without giving back. Comment and tell me where you're watching this video from, and subscribe to the channel. As she prepared the examination room, the double doors at the end of the corridor swung open. 4 people entered, 2 men in suits who scanned the area with practiced precision, followed by a tall black man who moved with a visible tremor, and a woman who held his arm supportively. Amelia's breath caught in her throat as recognition dawned. Even with his condition having progressed, Muhammad Ali's presence remained commanding. The boxing legend was 55 then, 13 years into his battle with Parkinson's disease. His movements were stiff, his once graceful fighter's body now at war with itself. Yet there was something undeniably powerful about him still, a spark in his eyes that the disease couldn't extinguish. "Good morning," the woman beside him said pleasantly. "I'm Lonnie Ali. We have an appointment with Dr. Williams." Amelia nodded, her professional mask firmly in place. "Yes, Mrs. Ali. I'm Nurse Bennett. I'll be doing the preliminary assessment before the doctor sees him." She led them to the examination room, her mind racing. Muhammad Ali, the 3-time heavyweight champion, the self-proclaimed greatest of all time, the man whose words once flowed like poetry, now struggled to control his own body. There was a time when Amelia would have been starstruck, but years of emotional detachment had dulled her capacity for admiration. "Mr. Ali, I need to check your vitals and ask some routine questions," she said mechanically, not making eye contact as she wrapped the blood pressure cuff around his arm. Ali nodded, his movements jerky and exaggerated. When he tried to speak, his words came out slurred and difficult to understand. Take your time." Something inside Amelia recoiled at his struggle. Not sympathy, something darker, more uncomfortable. Fear, perhaps. Fear that human frailty could claim even the greatest among us, that no amount of fame, wealth, or physical prowess could protect you from your body's betrayal. As she continued the examination, Ali's tremors worsened. His hand shook violently as he tried to sign the consent forms, the pen scratching erratically across the paper. Lonnie moved to help him, but Amelia felt a strange, inappropriate urge to laugh bubbling up inside her, a nervous response to discomfort she had never fully addressed. And then, to her lasting shame, a small snicker escaped her lips. The room fell silent. Lonnie's eyes widened in disbelief. The security personnel shifted uncomfortably, but it was Ali's gaze that pierced through Amelia's armor, not angry, not offended, but deeply, profoundly sad. As though he could see straight through to the broken parts of her that she had tried so hard to hide. Word of Amelia's inappropriate laughter spread through the hospital like wildfire. By lunchtime, she could feel the stares, hear the whispers. "Did you hear what Bennett did?" She laughed at Muhammad Ali. "Can you believe it? How could anyone be so cruel?" Dr. Williams had pulled her aside immediately after the incident, his face tight with controlled anger. "But what happened in there was completely unacceptable," he said, his voice low but intense. "Not only was it unprofessional, but it was inhumane. That man in there has shown more courage in his battle with Parkinson's than most people show in their entire lives." Amelia stood rigid, her eyes fixed on a point beyond Dr. Williams' shoulder. "I don't know what happened," she said stiffly. "It was involuntary." "Involuntary or not, you need to apologize," he replied. "And after that, I want you to take the rest of the day off. We'll discuss your future here tomorrow." As she gathered her things from her locker, the weight of what she had done began to settle on her shoulders. She had laughed at a man suffering, not just any man, but Muhammad Ali, a cultural icon, a hero to millions, and she had reduced him to an object of ridicule because his illness made her uncomfortable. The drive home to her small apartment on the outskirts of Louisville was a blur. 23 minutes of self-recrimination and mounting dread. Her job was in jeopardy. Her already tenuous reputation was destroyed. And worse, much worse, she had hurt someone who was already fighting a difficult battle. Once inside, Amelia collapsed onto her sofa, finally allowing the tears to come. They weren't tears of self-pity, but of recognition. In that moment of cruel laughter, she had become everything she despised: callous, uncaring, seeing illness as something to fear rather than something to treat with compassion. Her phone rang 5 times that evening. Twice from her mother, once from her supervisor, and twice from numbers she didn't recognize. She ignored them all, retreating further into herself as darkness fell over Louisville. Sleep eluded her that night. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw Ali's face, those sad, knowing eyes that seemed to understand her better than she understood herself. By dawn, she had made a decision. She would apologize, face whatever consequences came, and then resign from St. Mary's. She wasn't fit to be a nurse if she couldn't find compassion for those who needed it most. The next morning, Amelia arrived at the hospital 30 minutes early, her resignation letter tucked into her purse. She had barely stepped into the building when her supervisor intercepted her. "There you are," she said, her expression unreadable. "You have a visitor waiting in conference room 2. "A visitor?" Amelia repeated, confusion momentarily displacing her guilt. "Yes," her supervisor replied. "Muhammad Ali and his wife came back this morning. They asked to speak with you." Amelia felt the blood drain from her face. I can't. You can, and you will," her supervisor said firmly. "That man deserves your respect and your full attention. Don't make this worse than it already is." With leaden feet, Amelia made her way to conference room 2. Each step felt like a mile, each breath shallow and insufficient. When she finally reached the door, she paused, hand trembling on the handle. Then, summoning what little courage she had left, she pushed it open. Muhammad Ali sat at the conference table, his wife Lonnie beside him. 2 security guards stood discreetly by the door, but otherwise they were alone. Ali's tremors were less pronounced today, though still visible in the slight shaking of his hands as they rested on the table. "Mr. Ali, Mrs. Ali," Amelia began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am so deeply sorry for my behavior yesterday. It was inexcusable and—" Lonnie raised a hand, gently cutting her off. "Please, sit down, Miss Bennett." Amelia sank into a chair across from them, unable to meet Ali's gaze. "My husband wanted to come back today," Lonnie continued. "He has something he wants to share with you." Ali slowly reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a folded piece of paper. With deliberate movements, he unfolded it and pushed it across the table toward Amelia. His hands shook with the effort, but his eyes remained clear and focused. Reluctantly, Amelia picked up the paper. It was a photograph, yellowed and creased with age, of a young boy, perhaps 11 or 12, standing proudly with his fists raised in a boxing stance. The boy was thin, with a determined expression that couldn't quite mask his vulnerability. "That's Muhammad," Lonnie explained, when Amelia looked up in confusion. "When he was Cassius Clay, before the fame, before the championships. Just a skinny kid from Louisville with a dream." Ali nodded, and with visible effort he spoke. Each word was a battle, but he fought through it with the same determination that had made him a champion. People laughed. Then, 2. 4 simple words, delivered with tremendous effort, that hit Amelia like a physical blow. People had laughed at him then, too, before he became the greatest, when he was just a boy with ambition that seemed outsized for his frame. They had judged him, dismissed him, underestimated him. "Muhammad has never been afraid of people's judgment," Lonnie continued, placing her hand over her husband's. "Not when he was a young boxer that nobody believed in. Not when he converted to Islam and changed his name. Not when he refused to fight in Vietnam and lost 3 years of his career. And not now, as he faces Parkinson's." Ali nodded again, his eyes never leaving Amelia's face. "But he wanted you to understand something," Lonnie said. "Laughter can come from many places. Sometimes from cruelty, yes, but also from fear, from discomfort, from not knowing how to process what we're seeing." Amelia felt tears welling in her eyes, but for once she didn't try to hold them back. "The question is," Lonnie continued gently, "what will you do after the laughter? Will you learn? Will you grow? Or will you let shame harden you even further?" Ali leaned forward then, his movements slow but purposeful. He reached across the table and placed his trembling hand over Amelia's clenched fist. "You're fighting, too," he said, each word a triumph of will over the disease that sought to silence him. "Don't let it win." In that moment, something broke open inside Amelia. The walls she had built, the defenses she had maintained for so long. The tears came freely now, years of suppressed emotion finally finding release. "I don't know how to care without it hurting," she admitted, her voice cracking. "Ever since my father died, I've been afraid to let myself feel anything." Ali nodded, understanding in his eyes. Then, with tremendous effort, he spoke again, just one word this time, but delivered with such conviction that it seemed to fill the entire room. "Courage." 6 months passed. Spring had given way to summer, and Louisville sweltered under a July sun that seemed determined to test the city's endurance. At the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center, newly established on the east side of town, Amelia Bennett led a group therapy session for recently diagnosed patients. "Fear is normal," she was saying, her voice warm and assured, so different from the clinical detachment she had once hidden behind. "Anger is normal. Even laughter can be normal. Sometimes our emotions come out in ways we don't expect or understand." 15 faces looked back at her, men and women of various ages, all coming to terms with the same diagnosis. Some showed visible symptoms already. Others appeared outwardly unaffected. All carried the same questions, the same uncertainties about their future. "What's important," Amelia continued, "is what you do next. How you choose to face this challenge. Not alone, never alone, but with the support of people who understand." After her encounter with Muhammad Ali, Amelia had not resigned as she had planned. Instead, at the Ali's suggestion, she had begun volunteering at Parkinson support groups while continuing her work at St. Mary's. She had discovered a calling she never knew she had, helping patients and families navigate not just the physical aspects of chronic illness, but the emotional landscape as well. 3 months ago, when the Ali Center had opened its doors, they had offered her a full-time position. It had meant a pay cut and longer hours, but Amelia hadn't hesitated. For the first time since her father's death, she felt purposeful, alive. As the session ended, Amelia noticed a familiar figure in the doorway, Lonnie Ali, who often stopped by the center to check on its operations and speak with patients. "You're doing good work here," Lonnie said warmly as the participants filtered out. "Muhammad would be proud." Ali himself had not returned to the center since its opening ceremony. His condition had worsened over the past few months, requiring more frequent hospitalizations, but his presence was felt everywhere, in the quotes that adorned the walls, in the philosophy that guided their approach to treatment, in the spirit of dignity and courage that permeated every room. "How is he?" Amelia asked quietly. "Fighting," Lonnie replied with a small smile. "Always fighting." Later that afternoon, as Amelia was preparing to leave for the day, her phone rang. It was Lonnie, her voice tight with emotion. "Muhammad is asking for you," she said simply. "We're at St. Mary's." 30 minutes later, Amelia stood in the doorway of a private hospital room. Ali lay in the bed, looking smaller somehow, diminished by the machinery that surrounded him, but his eyes, those eyes that had seen so much, had witnessed history and helped shape it, remained alert and aware. Lonnie stood at his bedside, holding his hand. She motioned for Amelia to come closer. "He has good days and bad days," she explained softly. "Today has been difficult, but he was insistent about seeing you." Amelia approached the bed hesitantly. "Mr. Ali," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "it's an honor." Ali's tremors were severe now, his body in near constant motion. But as Amelia reached for his hand, something remarkable happened. For just a moment, a brief, miraculous moment, the trembling stilled. His fingers closed around hers with surprising strength, and then, with tremendous effort, he spoke his final words to her. "Never be ashamed of your journey." 7 words that encapsulated everything: his philosophy, his approach to his illness, the lesson he had taught her 6 months ago that had changed the course of her life. Never be ashamed of your journey. Not the mistakes, not the struggles, not the moments of weakness or fear. All of it was part of becoming who you were meant to be. 3 days later, Muhammad Ali passed away peacefully, surrounded by his family. The world mourned the loss of a champion, an activist, a humanitarian, but Amelia mourned the loss of a teacher, someone who had seen her at her worst and shown her a path to becoming her best. At the funeral, which drew thousands to Louisville, Amelia stood at the back of the crowd, listening as dignitaries and celebrities paid tribute to the man who had touched so many lives. When it was over, as the crowds began to disperse, Lonnie found her. "He kept track of you, you know," she said, embracing Amelia briefly. "He always asked about the nurse who found her courage. He believed in your journey." Tears spilled down Amelia's cheeks, but they were different from the tears she had shed 6 months ago. These were tears of gratitude, of purpose, of a heart that had learned to feel again. "In his lifetime, Muhammad changed many lives," Lonnie continued. "He stood up for what he believed in, even when it cost him dearly. He faced his illness with dignity and used it to help others. But sometimes, I think the most profound changes came in quiet moments, one-on-one, like with you." Amelia nodded, unable to speak. "Continue the work," Lonnie said simply. "That's how he lives on." And she did. In the years that followed, Amelia Bennett became a leading advocate for Parkinson's patients, developing programs that address not just the physical symptoms, but the emotional and psychological impacts of the disease. She shared her story openly, including the moment of laughter that had changed everything, using it to help healthcare providers understand the importance of confronting their own fears and biases. And on her office wall, in a simple frame, hung a handwritten quote from Muhammad Ali The man who views the world at 50 the same as he did at 20 has wasted 30 years of his life. Beneath it, in her own handwriting, Amelia had added, "And the woman who learned to see differently is never too late to begin again." If you've made it this far and felt every word, don't leave without subscribing. I tell these stories with my heart in my hand to reach people like you who feel, who get emotional, who live. If this really touched you, give back, comment, subscribe. Come be part of this family with me until the next video.